Here we go. So, thank you for being there and being patient. Tech problem happens from time to time. Forgot to unmute myself once again. So, thank you for being patient and being there. And I want to welcome you all to the 100th episode of the LIBERcast, the English edition, if I can use this word. Um, First of all, I want to express my gratitude to everyone who has been involved in it, the people who are partaking in it, the comments, the question, all the beautiful interaction that I have with other people. And you're really the pillars of the Libercast, and you're as for this work, if I get to only 1% of you all, if I can put the message through one of you, two of you, on the 100 of views that I have on the YouTube and Odysee, I will be happy with it. And it doesn't mean that I will stop the work. I I want to pound this information as much as I can because this is the right thing to do. There's things that we must know. There's things that we must say. There's things that we have to confront as humans, our own demons, our own shadow, this relationship we have with the others. But we'll have the time to talk about this a little bit. So bonjour Patrick Mélanger. So I want to, before I bring up my guest, I'm gonna bring up the One Great Work Network. It's a place where you can get to this much deeper into the world of the occult. There's plenty of stuff there to understand and to look upon and to contemplate over. And I invite everybody to go there and discover all this incredible library of knowledge and wisdom with all the presentators. There's like Scott Gordon, Sean McCann, Corey Andrew Ladd. There's um, um, I had it, Brendan Spencer, and then Brendan Martin and Will Keller, and all these great people who are working hard to bring this information up to all of you. So here we go. The job is done. Get that out. So I'm gonna bring up Kris. Welcome, Kris. Welcome to the LIBERcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy 100th.
Yeah, thank you. I see it as a step, and 2 years ago I wouldn't have thought about this did like I feel it today, like I live it in some ways because I put a lot of time and efforts, and I think this is when we want really something to change or to get better or to get better at something. You have to put time in it and efforts and care, and this is what this podcast is an attempt to bring people together and in and out groups, in and out communities. I like to touch on a lot of different things, and the thing that increased the the sport of this work is having to deal with two languages. So there's a traduction and translation there. Um, that it was a it's not over. It's not gonna be over for most of my life. I'm not gonna uh, let my guard down, and I'm even in deep tyranny and government. This is the right thing to do because we don't have the critical mass to climb to the top of the mountain as such as in this society. We have much work to do as humans and as brothers and sisters. This world is beautiful. There's not only and this is what I realized through these 2 years is how beautiful this connection between human can be, and it really gives a deeper meaning to your perceptions of being someone into this incredible mudge of different energies and vibrations and personalities and cultures and things like that. And the how do you respond to this? And this is the thing that I keep bringing up is what I understood is that the only thing we can control is our reaction to things happening to us. How do you react to this? And because this world is basically a mental realm by the way of how we're doing things into society and how we invent things. It comes from the imagination, comes from the mental. So if the problem resides into the mental realm, then the solution is gonna be there. And I try to open doors to people, try to give them a wider perception of what this world really is as such, and not looking into a filter of new agers and false spirituality or religion. The Just learn to discuss everything and look the things objectively. What is the consequence to our behaviors in the aggregate and around the people around you, and this relation you have with yourself? It's as above so below, principle of correspondence. Natural law is one of the centers of what I do because of the understanding I have acquired from studying these principles and putting them in action or non-action, depends on what you're doing with it. So the LIBERcast as such is a long-term project. I don't look for making it really better. I just want to make more slides, make more visual to it. But the foundation of the LIBERcast is morality, and this is what we're gonna discuss about in a moment with Kris. What is morality? Why and when? Why is the question, and how? How is even more interesting, and seeing the consequence and the cause and effect of the natural law principle, and how it's applicable into real life and decision making and behaviorism. So, by the way, before we start, if someone wants to join the podcast and you want to talk about something, have questions, then join me. Just send me a private message on Facebook, and I'm gonna send you the link there. I'm gonna be stay aware of what is happening in the background. So if someone wants to come in, I invited. I invited Corey, but I don't know if he's gonna make it. But so thank you, Kris, for being there and partaking with me for this 100th episode of the LIBERcast, and I appreciate it. I appreciate your work. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Glad to be here. I'm trying to be more social and more networking with fellow workers of the, I guess, of the light, of the
Yeah.
trying to get the truth out there. And what you're doing in, like you say, the difficulties in multiple languages, well, that's important because it expands your reach. I just do it in English. I could do it in French too. So everything, a lot of the work I've done, I could go back to it, redo the infographics. I have hundreds of infographics and redo those presentations. I could do them in French too, and that would expand the reach. But I already got a lot of stuff that I want to put out in English. So
Mm-hmm.
eventually I could do it in French, but for now I'm still trying to get the deeper understandings out in some of the work. And yeah, the world has a lot of beauty and horror. Beauty amid the horror, or horror amid the beauty,
Mm-hmm.
and we gotta not lose sight that there are good amongst the evil, um, but also not ignore the evil in favor of just having
Sure.
rosy-colored glasses or a positivity mask
Mm-hmm.
and trying to ignore it, and because just ignoring it is going to ensure that it persists, because the only reason it exists is because there's people using their consciousness, their mind, into their actions to create that into existence. And if there's no opposing work being done to try to counter that, then it'll just keep going because that's what's already being created. And yeah, we got to face the horror, face the darkness, face the demon, face the shadow, and the evil within ourselves first before we can really work to put in more energy, time, and attention on removing that from the outside world. As you mentioned, the reflective aspect of qualities of ourselves reflected outward, and qualities of what's outward reflected inward in the principle of correspondence.
Yeah.
And yeah, but
That's why it's so important to put an emphasis on the shadow working and introspection. So I mean, I use shadow working and introspection, but they're the same in some aspect. Some will use it more in psychology language, and shadow working. I think it's a very misunderstood uh, 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 work that someone has, and the thing is without shadow work, there's no great work. And I don't really care if people disagree with that, because this is what we have to do first, is confront ourselves and do the cleaning of your temple as a human, because you cannot give something that you don't have. If you cannot respect yourself, if you cannot love yourself deeply, like really respecting yourself, your limits, you cannot give that to another human being. It's impossible. So first of all, you have to be very, very self-conscious about these things, and real self-conscious about your limitation as a human and your flaws, because everybody has flaws. Everybody makes mistake. Nobody's perfect, never. But I think what the great work is shadow work, is making it better in means that you're gonna take something that you have, but you're not gonna let it control you anymore. You're gonna take control of this part of yourself that maybe you buried years ago under traumas, under like things that happened to you, violence, negligence, or any kind of thieving that happens to you. And when you do that work, it's making peace with it. And I use reconciliation as a word to define what I believe, what I know is shadow working. It's not getting rid of your demon. It's not getting rid of your shadow. Is to cooperate with it, making peace with this part of you. And even if you put like enough work, you're gonna be able to use it. Because if you can like get controlled by it, then you control it and you use it when you need to. These parts are part of yourself. And let me tell you something, Kris, is far from being enjoyable. This and we were talking a little bit about the what it brings in our behaviors as humans. This need to be left alone. This self-inflicted solitude. And why? Because I think the veils of reality and the veils of lies and deceptions have fallen, and seeing the truth as it is, seeing this world as it is can be very frightening and confusing. What I mean by confusing is you were brought into this world by people who told you mostly lies in your life, and then you have to confront it's like doing it all over again when you become an adult, when your parents didn't give you the knowledge, the necessary knowledge, the foundations of how to behave and how to deal with society as much.
Yeah, the unraised raising more
Yep.
unraised, and then it's been going on for thousands of years,
I think it,
generations
I
after
think it's even
generations.
worse now. But now the schools are closing for 3 days, man.
What's this? Why? What are you talking about?
There's a the union of teachers. They're all stopping to work for 3 days now, and I think it's gonna be uh, way longer than that. So I've seen this coming from like a mile.
Well,
Pe- I,
because
I
of the inflation, and
not because of that, because of working conditions, and there's not enough teachers
yeah,
in the
yeah,
school, so it's imploding
that's especially true in the U.S. I know there's been news reports of
everywhere.
like they're hiring just like anybody. They don't even know how to teach, and they're just frankly they're dumb, and yeah, and they're teaching people. All they do is just they read what they're told to teach other people, and they get it wrong, and they don't even know what they're doing. It's just incompetence. Yeah, it's a failing system. And that's where we've gotten as a result of our own actions. Failure to align with truth, and more falsity comes in, and then eventually, that unreality that we create, contrasted to the reality that should be. Well, eventually, it's not sustainable because you're going against reality, existence, nature, truth.
and what? So yeah,
You dropped out there for
yeah,
5 seconds.
yeah. I've seen that. So yeah, I think the this relation we have with knowledge and education is fundamental and shouldn't be messed with. Um, they've been fucking up for years now, and people keep fucking voting for them. And
And they're going to keep voting because that's the solution. Just vote harder, right? Keep voting harder and you'll vote your way into a solution.
I'm having like technical problems there. Stay
This
with
is what you're
me.
talking about you had yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm gonna try to.
But you seem back now.
Yeah, it's frozen there. Yeah, my program, my software is shit. Restream, you fucked up.
Well, your stream on YouTube isn't frozen.
I
That's
I mean
going.
I have so much problem with this now since a month a month. I keep drop down. So I'm gonna try to look up on the comments on Facebook from here. Sorry, people. Sorry for these technical problems.
Yeah, why YouTube's fine, so it's just Facebook.
Yeah, Restream. I have like it's fucking up on Restream.
Okay. Well, why YouTube is still going? That one's
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. So let's go. Let's put it aside from for a moment and let's talk about morality. Can you introduce us a little bit about the fundamentals and what you have to you have what you have to know in connection with morality?
Yeah, and I'll just do a 1 minute comment on what you said. So the great
Yeah,
work,
sure.
shadow work, alchemy. Well, that is the first part, and you
Yep.
can't do the second part. That's how I break up the great work. Some people call it the one great work. I just call it the great work. And so the goal of the great work. So this all ties into morality, anyways. That's where we're gonna go. But the goal of the great work is to influence others to change in alignment with morality. And in order for you to do that, well, you have to do work on yourself for yourself to first align with morality. So that's the level one. And if you're not doing level one, it's impossible for you to do level two, which is
Yep.
influencing others. So you have to change yourself, and then you can help to influence change in others. So it always comes back to yourself. That's why, the finger has got to be pointed at ourselves first. And that's why it's like blame the politicians, blame the secret societies, blame the
Yep.
bankers. Yeah, but it's all of us together, not as an individual, but you as an individual, if you haven't changed yourself, you're part of that aggregation of all the individuals together forming the
Hmm.
collective that supports that. Like people want to complain about certain companies and how they're rich and well, they shouldn't be allowed to be rich. We need to take their money or redistribute it. Anyways, all these arguments I've heard it from people, especially from people who come from France because they're like more socialist mindseted. But I'm like, one argument I had with someone, they're like, I was like, okay, what, like Jeff Bezos? Okay, well, how did he get rich? Like I'm like, forget about the tax exemptions or whatever money he got from the government and all that shit. It was like stolen taxpayer money from people to help him out in his business or however that went. And the same with Facebook and whatever. But well, how did they get their business? If no one bought from Amazon, would it have become a giant? If no one went to Facebook, would it still be Facebook? Like people have to take responsibility for what they feed
Yep.
as the what is generated in reality and keeps that being generated in reality. And people don't want that responsibility, they just want to complain. So if you want things to change and you've already removed yourself, like personally, before this year, Facebook, like it had been like a year or two since I'd gone on it. I just like, since I wasn't doing the great work, that's the only reason I use it personally, is to like post, share content, and a lot of people do that as well. But then you get sucked into like the dopamine fix and the scrolling, and it like triggers the attention and the whole dopamine cycle in psychology. But
Hmm.
it's, you gotta temper that, don't get too sucked into it. But if you're already removing yourself from it, and you see that as a problem, or say like Amazon or whatever other company, and you don't like it, well, then is it on moral grounds, or just a dislike, or you want other people to be supportive? Well, then support small businesses. Get other people to support small businesses. Bring them back if they're not in your area. Like, entrepreneurship is a hard thing to do, and a lot of it
Hmm.
got killed because of the mega corporations and supporting it. So, if we want to reverse things, well, we collectively, even if it's not us individually right now, in the past, we probably did. We probably were a part of it. If we're still not a part of it now, if we still are a part of it now, but we are the ones, all of us, making things the way they are. So we got to, together in numbers as a majority, change things. And that's why the level 2 great work is what is required. So even if you know I try as much as I can to not use Amazon, and if I can't find it elsewhere, well, then I buy it on
Yep.
Amazon. But I use cash in society everywhere I go. I can take out money from the bank. I use cash. I got to keep cash alive, because they're bringing in that CBDC, cashless society control grid, and it's going to be horrible. And people don't
Yep.
don't even see it coming. So all these things we got to do individually, and then if then we can go out and do content and influence people. Say, hey, this is what's wrong. This is why it's wrong, and this is how. Like you were mentioning, what is wrong and why it's wrong, and then how to stop doing that wrong thing. So how we
Hmm.
can bring about things that are better. And so this is all part of the shadow work and the introspection, and it's all self-improvement. That's where the point is, to remove falsity from yourself first, and then you can work on removing falsity outside of yourself, that's in the aggregate condition of everyone together. And one of the things you mentioned, well, you mentioned it in reference to something else, but being left alone is a right to not be
Yep.
fucked with. And that's like one of the foundations of morality. You have a right to be left alone, and right now the way we live is, we're not allowed to be left alone. We're being robbed and stolen from and violated on so many fronts. And so if you care about yourself, if you have the self-love, and you did the shadow work, that you value yourself enough, then you have to eventually get to that level 2. You did the level 1, you get to the level 2 of the great work, and that's trying to influence the aggregate to change, because you do care about yourself. Do you want to be a slave, or do you want freedom? So those are the two choices, ultimately, as the reflection of our internal capacity is reflected outwards, and what gets manifested individually and in the aggregate. So those are the choices. Well, do we want slavery, or do we want freedom? And if you want enslavement, well, then you don't love yourself, and you're self-loathing, and you self-hate. So if you want freedom, well, it doesn't just magically happen. There are requirements to it. So part of those requirements are influencing others to change. And the most effective way isn't on a one-on-one basis, because that is very laborious, and you can like be beating your head against a wall and never get someone to change. And then it takes like 20 years or whatever, and then finally they open their eyes. But the most effective way is through the blessing of our technological era, as opposed to in previous decades and centuries where they didn't even have this ability, and you had to do it on a one-on-one basis, or the only means you had was to make a book and then get a lot of printed copies, and then other people could be influenced by that book. But now we have the internet, which is even more widespread, more powerful, in order to reach more minds. And
Just like
that's
that.
that's the that's the avenue that we need to strive towards, if we actually care about creating that freedom. Because the only way it's going to happen is for that aggregate to change, and for more people to choose to recognize that they're currently in a state of enslavement, covert enslavement, not ball and chain, whatever, that most people only see it as enslavement. That's the only type of slavery there is. So they need to realize that there are other forms of enslavement and that we are currently enslaved. And then you have to care about yourself enough to want to do something to make that not the reality, to change reality. And you're not going to do it on your own. You're not the creator of the universe. It's not just you who gets to think whatever you want and reality becomes that way. And that means it requires you and other people and a significant amount of people, which is the majority, a great number of people. Needs to be a quantum shift in the quantity of people, that and the shift in consciousness for each individual to then reflect that outwards as actions and behaviors, so that they choose to do actions that will create more freedom and actually reach eventually true freedom, to diminish the degrees of enslavement, to eventually get that true freedom. And that's part of the level two of the great work, is that you have to care about yourself enough that you want freedom, and that you're going to put in the time and attention to obviously first learn. You have to take in information and have a good foundation of understanding, not only just receiving the knowledge, but you have to mull through it. You have to question why is this true. You have to reflect upon it and contemplate it, and then validate it and verify it. And then when you develop a good understanding, then you can be a teacher. And part of it is, even before you necessarily have a good understanding, once you try to start to teach, then it forces you to do that work that you might not have done before. It forces you to think more about things and to contemplate it more. As you become a teacher, one of the sayings is, um, you don't actually know something until you try to teach it, and that's quite true. I've found, unless you take a lot of that time and you really go through and like you try to prove something false yourself, then you're going to know all the ways that it could be false. That's what I do a lot, is try to say,
Hmm.
okay, this I see this. Okay, well, how is it not that? How can I show that that's not true? How can I show that it's false? And then you'll really like churn it and churn it and churn it and try to find what's wrong with it, and then you'll come out with a better understanding. But teaching it is a good way, because you're trying to say like, okay, I claim I understand something, and then okay, I'm going to teach that, and then you're like, oh well, oh, and then in trying to teach it, then you realize, oh okay, well I missed this part here, or someone brought up an objection here and they questioned me here. And then you develop even a greater understanding as you try to teach it. It refines and widens your understanding.
So the consequences of behaviors, of the quality of the information that is available into the masses and the aggregate and the culture, because the culture is the key there. What is moral, what is not, is determined by humans innate in the society. But essentially, what we're Kris and a lot of us try to put the point on is that there's no human morality. There's understanding of it, and please, Kris, if you can correct me, I try to express something in my Sagan language. So morality has to be learned from nature first. Then it become a source of change, because humans as different perception about morality now, and it's everywhere. Moral relativism as such is everywhere. It's in every stratus. It's in every cult and creeds and religions, and even in the spiritual movement, even more there. And what moral relativism is saying is that these people think they're God, and they can make right and wrong and turn it and twist it, you know. And what makes it immoral is the fact that it converges into violence, they think they have the right and the morality to do wrong to people for whatever reason they're doing it. It's justification of violence, justification of slavery and evil. So moral relativists, I talked with some of them, I had conversation with them, and all they care about is themselves. What what can I like suck out of the tits of society without getting caught?
Yeah, well, that's the Satanism, right? The egotism. It's
Yeah,
all about me, myself, and I, my freedom, my survival,
yeah.
my truth, my morality. It's all me, 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 me.
And I see it everywhere, you know. And I'm not saying that everybody is like that. It's not true. I have had people here on the podcast, on the LIBERcast, people who are working their ass off to help the people live in the streets, bringing them food and clothing. And they're working hard as hell to do it. They're cooking, they're doing like events to uh, bring money and do some groceries with people who cannot like do it for. I mean, let's say you can't you don't have any money to do a groceries, and then you call them and they can help you, and they're well intended, hard oriented people, and they're not in, as I know. I can be wrong, but I don't think they don't know about natural law and all these things, and they're still doing good, they're still doing right. So humans are yes, programmable, for sure. Depends on what society we live in, but we're social beings. We are growing up, we're growing when we're mixing up with other people, because we have conversation, deep conversation with, like this one tonight. Sure, we're not aside, you know each other's, but we still can have this conversation. And this is the connection with what you were saying, with the blessing of technology. We have the power to reach at the other end of the world with information instantly, just like that. But we're using it for shit. We're using it for trends, for like all these poor motherfuckers who ate some like dishes soap. They put them in their mouth, and they were filming themselves. They Tide Pods. They fucking
I
ate
have no
Tide
idea
Pods.
what you're talking about. I'm so out of touch with all
So
these like trendy things there. It's like
yeah,
no idea.
some of them did really stupid fucking things to have validation and attention.
Yeah,
Some of them
attention. Yeah.
died, for sure. You know, when you're eating Tide Pods, there's a chance that you die, from it, because they're chemical products. So people would light themselves on fire and filming themselves, and stupid fucking, retards. You know, and when you die like that, maybe you deserved it. Maybe you were too stupid to live,
Well, they were, but that's
so
the
they died. And I know you do whatever you want. It's your body. I'm not gonna prevent you from doing it. Maybe I will try to talk you out of it, but I'm not gonna like fucking stop you from doing it. If you want to eat Tide Pods or cinnamon, they would take a fucking spoonful of cinnamon, you know, and they would cough like retards, like fucking almost dying. There was a few things like that. I think some people could bring up some of them there were trends, you know. And yeah, this is the more toxic indoctrinating and dumbing down of human beings. You know, it's like starting something really stupid and make it viral. You know, really stupid. You know, and this is one just one of the example of the bad sides. But the problem with that is there's too much of it. There's too much information and there's too much bad information. You know, the celebrities, you know, and talk shows and things like that. This is fucking waste of time. Politics. People are fucking wasting their time with that. And it's sad. And it's sad because they're patriot side, you know. Their pride, their false pride. You know, this fake ass persona that people wear, you know, it's a mask. It's a beautiful face, you know, but it's only a it's only a mask. It's a costume that people wear. And what they're why people are doing that? Validation, fear of rejection, Stockholm syndrome. How much name we can add to that? Just to this phenomenon of the Stockholm syndrome, the slave who idolizes is master slave. Can you expand upon that, Kris?
Yeah, ultimately everything that you're talking about, not just whatever the patriotards and people who like the flag or the anthem or the country or the government and the bootlickers for the police and the military. There's tons of those. Or the people doing all the stupid things you're talking about at the root. Well, not the maybe not the deepest root, but what all those things share in common at a higher level, not at a deeper level, but they're all false selves. They're all falser selves. They haven't done like what we're talking about, the great work, level one, the alchemy of the self improvement, facing themselves, trying to realize what they don't have purpose, they don't have a higher purpose like we do, in trying to do the level two great work. Um, so in their false selves, they have a lot of mind viruses, which is what came to mind when you're talking about the patriotards. You know, they have mind viruses of falsity that they believe are true, that give them a sense of purpose, that give them a sense of belonging, a sense of meaning. So all this, that's what they lack because they're false selves. They haven't renewed and remade themselves into a truer, realer, higher version of themselves that they can be and continue to do that work as a phoenix reborn from the ashes. This is what alchemy is. And so they're in such a low state of being a falser self, an unreal self, a lower self, that they they lack that greater purpose and meaning and drive in their lives. So they gravitate towards things that make them feel like they belong to something, like they are a part of something bigger than themselves. And that's what all these trends are actually, I realize that now, that's what they're actually all doing, is that because they're in their state of falser, lower, unrealer self, and they don't have a deeper, more meaningful and higher purpose, and they still have that desire to belong to something bigger than themselves, which is what a true higher purpose based in truth and morality will give you. It'll bring you greater meaning and purpose and contentfulness in your life, that you're doing something meaningful, but they don't have that.
Mhm.
So they go to the trends because the trends is, well, they are an individual and the trend is something big. So if they subsume themselves into that trend, well, now they are a part of something big. And the same thing with the patriots and the people who want to go work in government or do police or go in the military. They want to join something that's bigger than themselves so that they feel like they belong. They want to be accepted. They don't have enough self-confidence. So all these people who lack meaning and purpose, well, they gravitate to all these aspects of reality that are false or negative, such as government, police, military, etc. And
Mhm.
there's all these stupid things that you talk about, where there's all these challenges of to do things so that you're part of that trending community, that larger community that does these certain things, and you feel like you belong to that type of identity, just like the identity of being in the police or military or government, or thinking that you're doing good when you're actually doing evil. And they're just doing it on a, they might not be doing it as a higher level as the, and the, being part of the enslavement system and keeping it going, but
Mhm.
they're doing harm to themselves, or in some cases they are doing harm to other people. Like I only heard of this, I forget where, but it was another challenge where you just pick some random person on the street and you walk up to them and you punch them in the head to try to knock them out or something. So that's violating someone else. It's not
Mhm.
just these stupid things where you take soap in your mouth or whatever other stupid shit there, and cinnamon and all these dumb things. And but it's all an underlying, um they all tie to an underlying root of being false selves who are trying to find greater meaning and greater purpose. And they go to all these false paths rather than knowing what the truer path is, the proper, the true way, and the true path. Because as you
I-
said, there's too much information. There, um, the stuff that we talk about and other people talk about, it's so few, and that's why we got to do more. The great work level 2 is to try to bring more content into people's awareness so that there's so much of it that they can't ignore. Now, that's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot more of us, and that's why it's important for more people to get on board on this great work level too, so that we can actually get to influence more people. The more people who join and do the work and create the content through the medium of the internet and has the potential of reaching people anywhere on the globe, well, then the more of those people can join in, and then it ends up being a snowballing effect. But all of that takes a lot of self work. You got to develop, you got to get away from the ignorance to develop the knowledge and the true intelligence with that knowledge and care. You got to have your care to drive you, and to like a first level ignition to then develop the courage, which is another ignition within yourself to make the fire bigger, so that you have the courage to overcome whatever fears you have that is limiting you from doing content and putting information out, whatever fears you have. So you got to care enough, obviously, about yourself. We talked about that before with the self love and self care. And to get rid of that self-loathing, you have to care about yourself enough to want to have freedom for yourself and others, because that's what true freedom is. There's no freedom just for yourself. True freedom is everyone. As you've said before, I think true freedom is for everyone. And
Mhm.
I've talked about that in my presentation on true freedom. And yeah, when you were talking about the morality from nature, that yeah, that's the opposite of that, the juxtaposes that is the subjective morality, which is false morality. People say, you know, Passio's done questions and people in social questions, and that they ask him a bunch of questions and they come up with they come up with answers that show that they are moral relativists, or that they support immorality. And then at the end, you ask them, "Do you think you're a moral or a good person?" And everyone says, "Yes, yes, yes." So everyone has this subjective morality. It's a false morality because, as you said, you're acting as if you're God who gets to make up whatever version of morality that you want. So it's completely detached from reality, and it can't be true, because what's true is what's outside of yourself. That's true for everyone. It's not just true for you. Like, I like bananas and you don't like bananas. Well, that's just a subjective preference. And
Yeah.
it's true that I like bananas, and it's true that you don't like bananas. I'm not saying you don't, but as an example. So that there's objectivity in that subjective preference. But when it comes to morality, it has nothing to do with what I want as a preference. It's not me liking bananas or me liking. It's not up to me to decide that I like um, to do violence to others or to have violence done to them by other people. So people are making up their own version of morality, and that's where the acting as God comes in, because it's not coming from a science in terms of looking at the objective world and trying to determine what morality actually is. And that's where it circles back to the beginning of the conversation with respect to
Mm-hmm.
um, the what do you want? Do you want slavery or do you want freedom? Well, those conditions that get manifested, you can define them, and you can define the degrees that manifest of each, and those are in reality. And then you have to ask yourself, well, how does that condition in reality come about? Well, that condition in reality comes about through our behavior, and the behavior is where you determine what types of behavior do you want to engage in order to obtain an objective result in reality. So that's the science part, is you have hypothesis, and you create an experiment, and then you observe the results. Well, if the results we want are true freedom, or if someone wants slavery, well, in order to get slavery or in order to get true freedom, there are the behaviors that will create that condition. It doesn't create itself. And so, if we want to know what behaviors create one condition versus another condition, well, that's where morality comes in. And that's where objective morality comes in. It's not based on whatever you want to make it up to be, it's based on what actual behaviors will produce a specific outcome or condition or state in existence, in reality, in nature, in the universe. And that's where the understanding of objective morality comes from, where it's from nature, from existence, from reality, from the universe, is that it's that condition that you want to have or that you don't want to have when we're talking about degrees of enslavement. Well, what are those behaviors that create those outwardly manifesting conditions as a result of our inward states of consciousness in the aggregate, all of us together? And that's what people don't understand. And that's what a lot of us are trying to get other people to understand. And it's a it's a long road. That's what I see. It's a long road. Hopefully, I can convince my kids to take up the challenge. It's a morality challenge, kids. Do you want to you want to take part of the challenge? It's a fun game. Yeah.
And I took some notes there because you mentioned uh, parents and parentality, and I think the one of the roots that you were talking about is parental abandonment, and the
Yeah.
lack of parental guidance, and your parents were not there, and you were raised by strangers, by teachers, you know, and the responsibility of a parent for me, I mean, and you have you have a kid too. um I think it's our responsibility to be well informed and more a moral being in order to do another moral being. There's a basic, and even children can understand these principles. Maybe they will have to experience it. Maybe they will test it for sure, like we all did and all still do, probably testing the limits of natural law and reality. But there's nothing that escape causality. And what is the causality of bad parenting is that these individuals who live onto these conditions will try to find a substitute for parenting. So you have the state, you have theological religions that are gonna take, and probably most of them, they will have the two, both of them, the state and religion. So if you have the nurturing aspect, that it's the religion, it's more the family stance on that. There's a collectivist feminine aspect to it, and then you have the father rules, strict rules, and order, and things like that. So the people who didn't have this guidance from their parents, or didn't have enough, or they didn't have it at all, they will find substitute for parents, and it's going to happen randomly. It's going to happen naturally because people don't have the knowledge. And I'm not saying that we're like you and me, we're going to be the same person in 1 year. Maybe we're going to change. Maybe, and everybody is like that, you know. Our understanding of things is maybe getting deeper. We get more insights from other people between this conversation, and nobody's perfect. Nobody is gonna be like, I'm gonna be there and like fucking be everywhere and being super famous, for doing this job ever. When nobody will get famous for sharing this information. There's a disdain for this kind of knowledge, and I can't. I can't. I'm telling you, man. People are scared shitless of knowing these things, because knowing is getting back to your responsibility, but people are fleeing like cowards out from this. Just you were talking of the first step earlier, and the first step is confronting yourself, and stop lying to yourself, and inventing like beautiful stories, that make you feel better, you know or being someone that you are not, because you want to be validated by the people around you. It's a children behavior.
Yeah,
It's a little
denial,
kid behavior.
excuses. Um, I had a whole thing in some of my articles about it. Yeah, well, ignorance and denial, rejection of truth, denial of the truth. They don't want to face things. And yeah, there was the other thing that you just said. They both tie into some important psychological aspects, but the second part just flew away from me. But yeah, and another part was the responsibility. You said scared of knowing. Yeah, people run from that responsibility of knowing, because then it means, well, now you know. What are you going to do with what you know?
Yep.
What are you going to do? Oh, now you know something. Well, how are you going to take that into your actions? Then you got a responsibility of taking what you know and you understand, and then applying it into your behavior. And part of that, even if it's not conscious, there must be some subconscious part that doesn't want that responsibility. They don't want to own up to it. So they run away from it, they deny it, they ignore, they justify, they reject. And oh yeah, I think the second part was, you just mentioned the family. People are so attached, as you said, you're going to be a false self to your family to fit in. That's part of like don't rock the boat. Um, um,
Exactly.
I forget all the other terms, but I wrote one of my first articles was "Love is truth and truth is love," and went into a whole like thing about this. Yeah, don't you got to fit in? Don't be ostracized, because that's part of one of the weaknesses of the um, well, one of the psychological barriers that we put up that creates a weakness is our as social animals, that we want to fit in, we want to be liked, we don't want to be outcast. So then the way people are is they're fitting a form of falsity, of unreal, lower, falser self, and you're also going to fit that mold because you want to fit in, because you want to feel like you belong. It all ties into the other things too that we were talking about: meaning and purpose, feeling like you belong to something. Well, part of that is the social aspect of where we belong to a group. We don't want to be in the out group, rejected. We want to be part of the in group, whatever group that might be. So we want to fit in, and we don't want to rock the boat once we're in there, because we're liked, we're part of that cohesive aspect of that small collective, not in the whole society, but we all have so many little like fractal micro
Yeah.
groups within that larger collective. And
Hmm.
within our little groups, well, we don't want to be outcasts, because those are our friends, those are our relationships, right? But it's all based on what we don't say to people. And that was one of my early articles too, as I wrote, had that realization that friendships and relationships are mostly based on what you don't say to other people, because you can't say things that are true, like you just mentioned, because people don't want to hear it. It's like you said, disdain. Well, there's a huge disdain, like you said, for sharing moral truth, because when you
Hmm.
do that, well, that puts up, well, here's the moral truth, and then here's your behavior, and there's an automatic association with, oh, you're telling me this is moral, and then that automatically reflects, even if they're not immediately conscious aware of it. I'm pretty sure most of them are, but even at a subconscious level, there will be an automatic um, intuitive understanding that will then bubble up into the processes of the mind and the brain and psychology, where then you're going to automatically have an emotional reaction, which will then cause you to engage in a rejection and a denial and a willful ignorance to push it away.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what I wanted to add. Keep going.
The what is the solution to this plague?
Care for truth. You
Yeah,
gotta you gotta
but
develop that.
I mean, I know, we both know that for sure. It's something we understand for sure. But when you come from a place of ignorance and fear, because I covered it in French not so long time ago, some of the primal fears, um, and it's all attached to abandonment and fear of the unknown, and we covered that on the LIBERcast. I think both of us, fear of chaos and fear of freedom, and I think it's a big chunk of it. I think the fear of the unknown is something that they're using 365 days a year, 24 hours, 7 days a week. The fear of scarcity mind control, and you have this fear of lacking something. Fear of lack and fear and scarcity mind control are both the same, but there's new ones there, you know and I think that the people are ready to compromise, and that was the theme on Kris Jensen podcast. I think it was the last episode. It was about compromise, and I think it was good uh, uh, a good overall approach to this word and what it means to compromise when it comes to your survival and the survival of your cherished people, your family, yourself, and where are we willing to go to take this freedom back and to defend it, and the responsibility that comes with it. And I repeat that a lot. you know would you like more to have a chaos made by a tyranny, by a government, live in like that all the time, being slavery, or being in chaos and being free and being
Yeah.
able to do your own thing, and take responsibility for what you are, what you say, and how you behave in society, because there's an escapism there. Okay, you have these people, these fucking mongoloids, that are going on the internet, and they're saying batshit fucking crazy things, and people believe them because it's comfortable. I'd rather be living in lies and deceptions, because they're not hurting me that much. Less than truth, let's say. You know? And I see that everywhere. Everywhere. In every communities you can think about, you know? at the One Great Work, the spiritual community, there's a lot of cognitive dissonance and pretentiousness there. There's people who are talking right out of their asses. You know why? Because there's repeaters, they're parroting, and there's doers. There's people who can understand things. When you live into these lies, depends on what community you are, the culture you are, it doesn't matter. You create, not you, Kris, but you create echo chambers, and these echo chambers are cubes. You're stuck into this subculture, this group, this creed, this club, and nobody wants to talk about all the the other opinions and mixing people together and having different ideologies talking together, philosophies and arguments and debates about ideas. This is the whole thing about philosophy. If you cannot have a conversation and entertaining an idea, entertaining an opinion, without like fucking cowering. I mean, we're still a fucking kids at this point. We're an infantile like mindset, because we cannot get over our beliefs, get over our programmation, to do something together, being working on the same page, at least working on the same page, because they're fucking doing a total number on us. They're fucking powerful, they're fucking influential, you know when they're saying they're doing something, these motherfuckers, the politicians and the bankers and all these corporatists, when they're saying they're doing something, they're not fucking waiting, they're making it happen. you know they wanted to show in the 3 last years, they showed us that we would embrace tyranny, we
That
would
all goes back
embrace full
to the
on
fear.
tyranny. Go on, Kris.
I just wanted to tie in all the things you're talking about. They're all interconnected. Well, everything we are talking about is all interconnected. But you're talking about the scarcity, and I'd say all fears stem from the fear of survival. That's the one that underpins them all. Because scarcity, a lack of what? Well, usually it's a lack of food or a lack of this. Everything that ties back to survival, because people are in that again. One of the tenets of Satanism, tenet number one, or the overall thing is all about egotism and yourself.
Yeah.
But the first tenet is self-preservation is the highest law. So that all has to do with your survival. So anything that has to do with your survival is what's most important. So that's what people put above as most important. And where's morality? Where's objective morality? Well, that doesn't even exist for them, because it's all based on this is first, and then everything that comes after is just the subjective false morality that they create to support their survival, whatever they view as most beneficial to their survival, and that's the Satanism that they're all trapped in.
What about
And
toilet paper, brother?
what about toilet paper?
They fucking robbed it out of the grocery stores. You don't remember that?
Oh yeah, well, actually, when I went, there was toilet paper, so I don't know.
Lucky you.
Well, I buy some, like I buy like 10 packs of like 48 rolls whenever I go when they're on special. I'm like, okay, it's on special. I get to save money. I buy 10 and then I'm good for like half a year or a year or something. That's how I do it. So maybe when it was happening, I didn't need to go look, and I didn't see that they were all missing. But I saw pictures like in the US, yeah, there were like in so many stores, like things were running off the shelves, and that's what happens when, yeah, like you're saying, people fear for their survival. Well,
Yep.
toilet paper is one of the first ones to go. It's gone. It's gone everywhere.
I mean, I man, it's just in here, man. People were fucking crazy, man. They were fucking taking all the toilet paper, man, from the shelves. I was working at the groceries at the time, and it was crazy, crazy. People were turned fucking batshit crazy in 1 week. Only 1 week it took for people to fucking loony, like fucking. It was a incredible situation and context of life, and I think the consequences of that will be there for years to come. And I was talking with people, and they lost all their families, for from the conflicts that spawn from this psyop. And it's very powerful and it's very blatant when you have the eyes to see, and be able to see the red flags everywhere. And this mass psychosis, man. I mean, everybody was affected by that. Nobody is like were left untouched by this. I i i i was very angry, and this is one of the reason why I started the LIBERcast, because of the tyranny and because of the blatant tyranny. I was telling people years ago, prepare yourself, motherfuckers, because what you're gonna see, man, is you're not gonna like that, you know. And they made me right, they showed me, you know showed me that we were fucking retarded, and we were like sheeps, you know with the arrows on the ground, you know you
Yeah,
have to
yeah. In the
work.
circles, stand here, and
Yeah,
then
stand
two
there,
meters
and
apart, stand here.
I was like, oh my fucking god.
Yeah, one guy in the grocery store when it was starting up. At that point, there weren't mask mandates yet, but all the circles were there, and the guy was like looking at me, and I'm like, these distances, they're they're they only have to be abided if we abide by them. Like if we don't want to stay this far apart, then we don't need to stay this far apart. Anyways, that was just some comment I made to a guy in the store. But yeah, the fear, they know, like in Dune, fear is the mind killer. That's one of the great,
Yep,
the original
absolutely.
movie there. I like that sequence there. Fear is the
Hmm.
mind killer because that's what it is, man. They know how um, to create fear. And one of the things that Derek Bros uh, found out, and he published on The Last American Vagabond in 2020, I think it was something called parasite stress theory. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but parasite stress theory is, so all these think tanks and these academics, they're smart, right? They're into psychology and for thousands of years. So
Hmm.
one of these groups, I guess they're academics who, whether they had ties to the agenda or not, I'm not sure, but they wanted to see how powerful that these fear of things could be to um, engender certain behaviors. So I'm probably like bastardizing the whole thing because I didn't look into it deep enough there, but
Hmm.
they researched how like it's not just a parasite. If there's a parasite that you fear, it'll motivate, like a parasite could yeah, if you fear something, it'll motivate your behavior. But how they can induce fears into society as a parasite in order, like a parasite can control the host. So I think it was a play on that symbolism, that analogy, where a
Hmm.
parasite controls the host, where you induce fear as a parasite in order to control the host population. So you create fears of anything, and you can get people to accept tyranny and totalitarianism. And they've it's like academic papers on this. It's called parasite stress theory. It's in amid my PDFs. Like I like saved it, but I never got back to it. And there's always like tons and tons and tons of stuff to read and catch up on, but I never got around to it. But if you're interested in that, anybody listening, parasite stress theory, really fascinating, and it very much applies to the past 3 years. And I view the past 3 years as a blessing, honestly, because
Yeah.
I view chaos as a teacher, and this
Hmm.
is unfortunately the suffering that more people need. And yes, it will cause division because that's what, the awesome parable that's been around for centuries in the Bible, Matthew 24, verse 10, or so, I forget what it was there, but the sword of truth parable. That one is so applicable because the truth is going to turn people against each other. Because once you stand for the truth, the people who are attached to falsity are going to remain attached to falsity unless they're willing to let go of the falsity. So if they're not willing to let go of the falsity when confronted with truth and the conflicting challenge that brings to their worldview and their self view, the way they view themselves in relation to the world and the way they view the world, well, that creates a fracture within themselves. And I've written about this psychological aspect where that's so you're walking in your reality, your worldview, and your self view. Things make sense the way you currently view it. And when truth comes in and makes a hole in how you view reality or how you view yourself, well, that creates discomfort and anxiety and insecurity and fear
Yeah.
because the ground that you were walking on was nice and solid before and everything made sense and it was all safe to walk on. But then when the truth came in, well, that made a hole. So now your worldview and your self view has a hole in it. Well, that's not safe ground to walk on because
Hmm.
now you got a bunch of holes in it. So rather than try to remove the falsity and bring in the truth to patch up that hole, well, people just want to block it out. They want to reject and deny and willfully ignore because they're not willing to do that level one great work of reevaluating themselves and the reality that they thought that they lived in to align more with what the reality actually is, and then re rework themselves to gain comfort again and security and an accurate and have a solid path again. So rather than do that work, well, they just want to deny, reject, ignore, and dismiss things, and that that psychological process, then they think that's bringing them false security again. That's bringing them back to their sense of well-being, their sense of security. They're getting rid of the fear. They're getting rid of the discomfort, but it's not actually getting rid of it for real in an objective, healthy way. It's just holding on to the falsity, holding on to the delusion, holding on to the unreality, and continuing to believe that it is real, and just holding on to it. And you're still living in an unreality, but because you don't want to face the things that are unreal and untrue, then you're and momentarily, just momentarily living in that void and abyss and in that darkness of not knowing something. They just push it aside and reject and dismiss and deny because they don't want to live in that period, in that state of whether it's a minute or a week or however long it'll take them to fill back that hole with what is true. As soon as they get that fracture and that void in the abyss in their sense of comprehension, then they that's where the emotional reactions come in. And I have another chart
Hmm.
on reality processing, which goes through that phase of like some new information comes in, then there's cognitive dissonance, then there's the emotional cues,
Yeah.
which you can pay attention to and resolve and transmute into a healthy way, or you ignore those emotional cues and you let them drive you rather than engage in like the neocortical higher consciousness to resolve those emotional cues of anxiety, of discomfort, and denial and dismissal, instead of working with them and integrating them and transmuting them into a pathway of seeking out truth to make your sense of reality and sense of self make sense again. Well, they immediately um, are just motivated by that mammalian brain or reptilian brain aspect of being driven by those emotions rather than take the time to reflect upon, well, why am I feeling this way? What is driving this? Oh, it's because this information I don't like. Well, why don't I like it? Well, is it because the information's not true and it's making me angry? Okay, well, that can be a legitimate response. But if it's true and it's making you angry, well, then shouldn't you align yourself with that information? But rather than engage in this process and then choosing to align with what's true and evaluating whether it is true or not, even if it might be false, well, you have to look into it and be open to being wrong. They're not doing all this.
I'm gonna show this one there. I like it very much.
Stop overreacting. What are you, afraid of the vaccine? Come on, it's safe and effective. What are you, a coward? How come you're not taking it?
Yeah, I like it very much. It's very telling. Like it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work to do, even for us, even for ourselves. I mean, there, like we were saying earlier about that this work is an ongoing work for us, for everyone. And I want to take back what you said on that. And this is the time is now. This is what it means. It means that if we want to take action, you want to bring up change, then it's now. And not being afraid of telling the truth, even if it's scary, even if you think you're gonna lose friends, even if you think you're not gonna be validated, because it's way over that. It's way over people's belief. It's way over people fucking false these false dream dreams that people have, these lies, these deceptions that they're telling to themselves. And this is truth is a destructive thing, because we live into a world of lies and deceptions about the nature of humans, the nature of what we should be, with all the powers that humans have. It's incredible what we can do. We are incredible beings
Yeah, the
when
power
we
for
are
great good or great evil.
absolutely. We can be fucking masters of things, you know. But the thing is, we try to to master nature, but it doesn't work. There's gonna be a fucking backlash from that. You know, all these monocropping and genetic modification. You know, we're inflicting into the earth. You know, and onto ourselves, because we're eating this. The cattle is eating this, so it's everywhere. The attacks are from everywhere. You know, in the spiritual movement, and this is why I fucking lashed out on the spiritual movement, is because of the fucking nonsense that nothing is real.
I can't stand most of that shit there.
Solipsism, moral relativism, ego, ego, these people, these frauds, these charlatans.
It's to feel good. That's what it. That's at the top level root of it
Yes,
is. Just to
feel
feel
good.
good. You make up whatever reality you want, and you feel good about it.
It's like accept everything. You know, accept, because you cannot change anything. This is what they're telling. Most of them are telling us you cannot do anything. You know, everything God decided. You know, this is our destiny. Everything is written. It's crazy. It's crazy talking. And I don't care the shape of the earth. I don't even give a fuck about that. This is why I'm not touching on this shit. I'm not interested in it, and and certainly not interested into new age garbage that I stumble upon during my grit work. Actually worked with some of them. They're good people, You're well intended. Well, essentially, they will show you their real face.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they're good um, in a higher sense. They're,
It,
like you
it's
say,
it,
well intentioned, and they might do good things, but that doesn't make you a truly good person.
yeah, L is paved with good intentions. And I tend to be very vitriolic with this, um because I think it's, I mean, if you're an adult, and this world if you go out, you can die at any moment. you know I don't know what happened after death. I'm not preoccupied by that at all, because I'm not dead. And this is what is important for me, is what we can do now. Maybe we swim against the current. you know Maybe we are the only fish who try to go up on the river, and you all see these fish fucking following the flow. They're floating on their back. These sleepwalkers. I call people sleepwalkers, because this is what they're
The
doing.
Walking Dead.
I don't call them dead.
Well, they're
I
not
call
literally
them
dead, but
sleepers.
they're
Yeah,
metaphorically dead, unbegun, uninitiated.
yeah. I'm not using their terms. But I I I I have the almost compassion. I'm compassionate on all people. I care about all people, but I don't tolerate lies. I don't tolerate violence. You know, in any condition, any context that you are in, you're at the job, you're on in your family having a party. There's no place for violence, no justification for violence ever. So where are you ready to go to make this principle happen? you know when when we're talking about principles, is something that it's an ideology that you align yourself with, and freedom is an idea, because we don't have it now. We don't have the freedom to think, because of all this, the baggage we had when we were young. They fucking pounded this information in our heads, that we were too much on planet Earth. Overpopulation. What a crock of fucking bullshit. And I hear a lot of people telling that, oh, we're too much. Motherfucker, if we all take all the population on the earth, we can all fit in Canada. And we would be fucking comfortable. People are fucking ignorant, and they're morons. They're willingly stupid.
Well, that's why they buy into the falsities that are propagated, and then they create their worldview based on those falsity, and then live in an illusion, live in an unreality.
This is connected intimately with eugenics and social Darwinism. People, and I told people this information. I hope people fucking get it. You know, I hope people fucking understand why I talk about Satanism and the tenets of Satanism,
And now
because
it's
it's so blatant. It's everywhere. Most people are Satanists. They don't know it, but they're Satanists. You know, they're the absolute product of Satanism. Anyway, these people who are the higher ups in the cult of Aton and the Black Sun, they don't want anything to do with these people. They don't fucking care about Satanists. They're they I'm sure that's why all the occult traditions cannot fucking tolerate them. All these not that I want to put people into categories, but atheists are not accepted into any occult traditions, because there's an attachment to something bigger. It's way too it's way it, I mean you you don't have to go far to realize how nature is our mother to all. And some people, they changed it. Some people like were fucking idolizing volcanoes and trees and animals and catastrophic like things and moon and stars. You know, we're obsessed by this, and they're trying to cutting us from nature, and this is what they're absolutely doing. It's inverting everything. So this connection with nature, they want it severed. So we have no place to go when we want to get back to our roots as natural creatures, as nature's creatures. And I think it's a scary thing, because I think nature is really a big part of who we are as a species. And being far and not understanding nature is not understanding ourselves and how it works, the cycles and the patterns, and the understanding of what we're seeing. I mean, I can talk like for hours about this. I like this so much. But we are an hour and 35 minutes in. I think I did not it did not went through where I wanted to go, but I'm gonna have the chance to thank personally all these people. I'm gonna try to bring them up. I'm gonna try to put the names there just for a final. So everybody was involved into the LIBERcast from the beginning, and I'm gonna try to make it quick. I want to thank Regina, who was one of the first people who gave me. Uh, I thank her for being one of the first, and then I had Bobby C from Alcoholic Anonymous and the 12 Steps. He exposed the AA cult, the Alcoholic Anonymous, and I suggest everyone to go there and look at this episode. It's fucking incredible. When he bring up the Bible of the AA and he explains all these things, it's fascinating. And then I had one of the first, Scott Gordon was one of the first who was there. And then I had Michael from Contributionism and Ubuntu and RBE, who are communities who try to do a hybrid between money and no money world. So there was a plenty of good ideas there. I suggest everyone to go Ubuntu Contributionism from Michael Tellinger. He's a Canadian, and his work is brilliant. Not flawless, but it is brilliant for a basic, for a blueprint, for a volunteerist, if I can use the word, future for this utopia. There's a blueprint there. It's very interesting. Caroline Riley, brilliant women that I had the chance to stumble upon to talk about shadow work and psychology. She's incredible. So I had some French people from Eco Village, means that these were communities that were living by themselves, and they have a bunch of them in Quebec. And then I had Cesara Maria Borgia. I don't know if she's still up. I want to thank all these people. And then I had David Greenberg. I had Will Keller. I had Douglas Martin. I had James Robert Cardiner and Brendan Martin. I had François Chartrand. We did two together, and these two, he's very known for his work, and it was a very interesting approach to Urantia and the canonization and the Christian myth and the all the Urantia book. Go there and explore that. It's crazy. So Maria West, she did a lot with me. There's I think three there. Nate Cap. I had Dorian Greens. I had and all these people. I had them. I had what's his name again? With Holin Key W.H. Olin. I had Logan Hart. Yannick Cloutier. Will Keller. There's a bunch of them. Jonathan. Incredible 2 years of work and introspection and discovery. And I want to thank again. We're an hour and 40 minutes, and I would like it to continue all night, but we need to put a stop to it and go sleep and take some energy back. And I want to express my gratitude to everyone for being there, all the people who were there all along, and the people who will listen to it in later. Thank you so much for supporting me, and thank you to all the guests, all the people who was there in the beginning. I don't know if they will hear me, but thank you so much for being there. Thank you, Kris. By the way, I had the pleasure of having Mark Passio on the podcast, and it was a freaking awesome podcast. For the people who didn't saw it, go look at that. It's fucking precious stuff. Incredible.
Yeah, motivational to get your ass in gear. I'll say that.
Yeah. There was a there, and I made and just to put talk about it. I made a with three other people. I made a conference. I didn't talk too much about it, but it was all French, and it was an incredible experience. I don't know if there's gonna be another one. So I mean, there's so much stuff we could talk about, and the implication, but thank you again for being part of it, and we're gonna have an 100 other episode after that. It's not over. We're
For
gonna
sure.
fucking pound this information again and again and again until it's getting through it. Going through this veil of ignorance. It's thick, brother. It's fucking, it's crazy. Crazy. So
Yeah, we got to compete with all the gaming videos and all those stupid challenge videos and all the
yeah,
politic videos and all the news, and we got to compete with all that shit.
I mean, it's. I don't want to compare myself with them either. I'm not listening to TV since like almost 18 years
Oh yeah, me either.
or more. So I'm not fucking
I'm just talking
following.
about the voice of truth has to compete with the voice of falsity plus all the bullshit, all the other bullshit that's out there to get people's attention and get them to pay attention so that they're that thick layer of ignorance, you gotta shrink it down.
So we all need you fuckers to do the work. This is what we mean exactly. It's like get out of fucking stand up and fucking do the work and help us. Join us in this in the front. We need all of you who's there to do the fucking work. Do it. Do not wait. Just do it and join us and raise the voice of truth because we fucking need it. We feel fucking need it badly. We're gonna not fucking die like on our knees for sure. And it's a message of hope. I don't care what people think. We're gonna keep fucking do the work and talk about it and doing conference or not doing conference. Some people are doing music, some people are doing art. It depends on what you want to do. There's a fucking infinite possibility of expression. So get involved. You want to talk, no problem, just come get me on Facebook and we'll talk. I'm gonna help you find your way through this because the rabbit hole is going deep, and having the right tools, it's very important too. So the work of Mark Passio would fucking shine, is fucking shining, invaluable work. So I suggest everyone to go see his work. I started to there's a woman who did the translation in French. She's talking over Mark Passio, and she's doing a incredible work. So go see that. It's on the LIBERcast page on Facebook. I'm gonna try to put it there, a link to the video for the French people.
Yeah,
So thank you
my
again,
partner
and
found that a few months ago because she prefers it in French, and
yeah,
yeah, she went through it. So for all the French people, they can learn
yep,
the 9-hour presentation that Passio did. It's all in someone talking in French explaining it all. So yeah, they can learn that way. It's much
yep,
needed. And time is unfortunately time is running out. Like what we're doing now, if things keep going the way they are, this is not going to be possible. They the powers that should not be, they are working to completely restrict and control the internet, and it's being done in incremental phases. Like this year, there was the whatever
C21,
CRTC with all the media has to be registered with the government so they can control it, just like they do the TV and the radio, and
yep,
the banning of news on social media. It's like it's ratcheting up. It's ratcheting up. So what we're doing, if we're not successful, like in a few decades, this isn't even going to be possible.
yep,
Everything. Will there even be a dark web? They're just going to control all the access points and all the hubs and the switches and relays and everything. They'll just have complete control. I don't know. It's not looking too good, but right now, like you said, the time is now, and it's serious. Like, we have such a great opportunity right now because of the internet and the digital means of communication and conveying information, something that's never been here, at least in recorded history. Who knows if whatever 100,000 years ago, if they had computers and stuff, whatever. I can speculate, but I don't think so. But anyways, I'm viewing it as it's the only time this has been here, this technology, this opportunity, and unfortunately, it's being squandered because of obviously the lack of knowledge, which is what we're trying to get out so more people understand it, and then the lack of courage and the
Yeah.
care to then put more of that out, to amplify that voice of truth, to combat the voice of falsity, and actually change our condition towards more positive ends. And yeah, time is now, like you say, because that there's going to do more and more control. It's inevitable. That it's going to get worse. How is it going to get better when slavery, degrees of slavery are being allowed, and people continue to allow it? And whenever they increase and ratchet up that degree of enslavement, people continue to allow it. These people want to enslave more. It's like they're not going to stop wanting to enslave more. They're going to keep trying to enslave more and more and more until they get more and more and more control.
Yeah.
And do you want to just let it happen, or do you want to try to prevent that from happening? Well, you have to, back to the self. You have to care for yourself enough to not want it, and then use that care to motivate you. Use that fire within you, ignite the fire
Yeah.
within you to care enough and develop the courage to then act. It's all about that ultimate goal of changing that condition requires action. So you have to care. You have to develop the self care. And if honestly, like I talked about in the True Freedom presentation, I'll talk about in my next one on morality, is that if you want freedom and you're not doing the work to try to create freedom, then you don't actually have enough care developed within you. It's that you might have a bit of a flame, the spark has been ignited, but it's not enough to power the engine of your consciousness and your actions to get you to do something in the world to try to actually fulfill the requirements to get your freedom and freedom for others. And that's, you need to care more. I don't know what it's going to take, what catalyst, more suffering, but you,
Yeah.
you got to care more. And
People are gonna people are
care.
will wait to get cornered, and it's gonna be fucking too late.
Yeah,
This is what will happen. Or people will fucking accept it with applause. The people will applause the rise to dystopian technocratic like tyranny. And this
that's
is
coming.
and people, if we're getting there, we fucking deserve it. But not my children, you know. We did nothing. But my children, they don't have anything to do with that. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm fucking fighting.
Overall, it is the causality of the law of freedom and the natural law of
Yep.
you reap what you sow in the aggregate, and we're going to get it. So
Yep.
those of us doing the work, we don't deserve it, but we're enslaved by other people's ignorance, as Passio has
Yep.
phrased it many times.
Yep.
The ignorance of other people is what keeps us enslaved, because they're ignorant of morality. They're ignorant of the need to take on the responsibility to live morally, and then to teach other peoples about morality. So that's what we've got to battle, is that ignorance, and get more people. You know, if no one, if everyone already had the knowledge and they were already living moral, we wouldn't need to do the great work level 2, because everyone would
Mm.
have done level 1, and we would already be living in a moral way, and that
Yep.
teaching would already be conveyed. We'd already be actually raising, rather than being the unraised, producing more unraised consciousnesses. We'd already be raised and producing more raised consciousnesses, which then would also teach it, because it would be the de facto norm of reality to be moral, and that would be propagated forward. But
Yep.
since that is not the norm, we have to engage in the work to teach others about morality, so that we can again eventually get to that norm, and then we'll actually be living in a much better world.
So this is it's a beautiful final words. I think it resumed it very well, and for the people who wants to learn about what he said, and Kris as his presentation, they are fucking mind blowing. Kris Nelson, it's evolconsciousness.org. It's right beside his name there. I encourage people to go see his work, those presentations that he made, and that's fucking good stuff there. So go see his work. Go on the LIBERcast, YouTube, Facebook, Odysee, and then I think there's Rumble and BitChute, but these ones are not updated. But there's plenty of stuff. Odysee, I send everybody to Odysee. Odysee, it's you can go there and download the clip and do whatever you want with it. It's all free. I'm not asking money at all. I do it because I care. Because I care about Kris, because I care about you people listening, because I care about my children and the children of the others. And this is why I do this work. So thank you so much, people. And it's gonna be the next gonna be tomorrow in French, and it's gonna be with Marco Cagliari. So see you tomorrow for the French people and the people. I think Kris understands French too. Are you?
Well,
You
yeah,
will
I
be
speak
able to.
French.
You speak French very well, I think.
Maybe better than the average bear, the average English person.
Maybe
But
better than the average French people.
I don't know. I don't know about that. But
I mean, it's this fucking language, man. Even for me, I fucking so complicated with all the rules and all this stuff. English, it's so easier to
plus, I
listen.
find the ability to convey information, yeah, is more descriptive and more there's more
Hmm.
connections, and especially like the green language thing is like really interesting, and it really works well with English and doesn't work well as much as other languages. However,
No,
that
that's
happened
it
and turned out,
exactly.
who knows? But yeah, it's really interesting the way English is.
So take care, everyone. T- Take good care of yourselves and start doing something now. This is where this is fucking now. We need it. We need all you to do the great work and do the shadow work on yourself, and then get involved. So tomorrow, next time, and for the English one, it's gonna be Saturday evening. It's gonna be Jim Cost who's gonna come back, and we're gonna have a incredible conversation once again. So take care, everyone, and see you next time.